Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you, as is usual. So we're going to do another HeidALEberg beer for you this time, and this one is from the Klosterhof brewery, which is in Ziegelhausen. As I've mentioned in my videos before, Ziegelhausen, it's arguable whether that's actually a district of HeidALEberg or whether it's a separate village, but when I went up and actually visited their little brew pub sort of farm shop thing, I managed to pick up two of the beers in bottles like this, and you've already seen the review for the Hopfenfuss, so I'm going to do this one, which is the HeidALEberg now. And this one apparently is an India Pale Ale, so I'm quite interested to see how they actually do this style of beer here in HeidALEberg, if you like. I think this is my 5th review from the Klosterhof brewery already, so you can find the link to the other ones in the video description there, as well you can find the link to the actual brewery website, so have a look at those if you are interested. But as is usual with my beer reviews, I'll take you through a brief history of the brewery, and in this case the monastery that's attached to it as well. But as I always say, if you are simply just interested in the tasting of this beer, then feel free to go on towards the latter part of the video and you will catch that particular segment. But anyway, this is a fairly new brewery. It was only founded back in 2009 and it's linked to a very old monastery called the Neuberg, and the monastery is on the northern bank of the Neckar River, which runs through HeidALEberg, and this sort of farm shop and monastery and the sort of pub, if you like, is actually located on the southern slope of the Mouthfeel mountain. Now in 1130 the Neuberg monastery was founded as a male-only Benedictine monastery, and apparently this was a branch of the Lorch monastery, but at the request of the first Count Palatinate Conrad von Stauffen, the Lorch abbot Sieghard of Schauenberg changed the monastery into an independent nun monastery, and it remained as this until the year 1562. Now in 1232 the Lorch monastery, as I mentioned a minute ago, is the mother monastery of the Neuberg. This was dissolved and the rights of the Neuberg passed to the Bishop of Mainz and then to the Worms monastery, and they held control of the Neuberg until the year 1806. Now documents have shown that the monastery was converted to a Zisterzienster monastery with the support of the Schonau monastery in the year 1303, and under the Prince Elector, I think this is the German heir to the heir to the German throne, if you like, under Friedrich I the Victorious, the monastery was returned to the Benedictines in the year 1460. Now at the time of the Protestant Reformation, which started in the early 16th century, around 1517 I believe it was, the nuns actually left the monastery, but they left later in the year 1562, and this led to the dissolution of the Neuberg monastery. But at this point it was taken over by Brigitta, who was the cousin of Prince Elector Otto Heinrich, or Otto Henry if you like, and after the nuns left she changed the building into an aristocratic home for women. But under her reign the house was actually occupied by Prince Graf and his wife of the Stift family, and this is today why the monastery is known as Stift Neuberg. Now in 1706 the monastery was turned over to the Jesuits by Prince Elector John William, and during their time they expanded the monastery and grew it until the order of prohibition from Pope Clemens XIV in the year 1773. But the monastery also became associated with the University of Heidelberg in the year 1798 after the approval of the Prince Elector. However, in the year 1804 the monastery went into private ownership and it changed hands many times. It was actually owned for a while by the famous German author Karl von Weber, and later it was owned by Johann Friedrich Heinrich Schlosser from Frankfurt, who was actually a relation and a friend of the famous German writer and politician Wolfgang von Goethe, and they say that the building became somewhat of a centre of romanticism, if you like. Guests included the philosopher Friedrich Schlegel and also the writer Clemens Brentano as well. Now in 1908 the property was bought by its final private owner, who was Alexander von Bernus, and it was the meeting place of many intellectuals of the time. This included Rudolf Steiner, who was an Austrian philosopher, Stefan Georgi, who was a German poet, Friedrich Gundolf, who was a German Jewish poet and scholar, Wilhelm Trübner, who was a painter, and Klaus Mann, who was a German writer. Now Alexander von Bernus actually sold the monastery to the Benedictine monks once again in 1926, and then in 1929 Adalbert of Nieperg was actually installed as the first abbot of Neuberg, and the monastery underwent renovation in the 1940s and then again in the 1960s. In 1988 actually saw the appointment of Father Francis Hieremann, the 4th abbot of Neuberg, who remains in charge of the monastery to this day, and further renovations to the monastery were carried out in 2001 and also in 2010, and there actually today are a total of 15 monks living in the Neuberg, and they're all well versed in breeding fish and cattle, but they're also well renowned for their horticulture as well. And if you actually actually go to see their little brew pub, if you like. They actually have a lot of farm goods and things like that. You can buy the fish that they've marinated and smoked and all of this sort of thing. Lots of different sausages and cheeses and sweets and all of this sort of thing. All stuff that's been made by the monks, of course. But as mentioned earlier, the brewery opened in 2009, in October to be exact, and it's attached to the monastery. Their brew kit apparently is German-made, but it was actually bought from a defunct brewery in Mallorca in the Balearic Islands just off Spain, and they specialise in brewing organic beer. But initially they only produced the 0.33 litre bottles, but in 2010 they changed to the 0.5 litre bottles with the introduction of their Pils beer, and they've been further expanding their range since this time. Let's tell you a little bit about the raw ingredients that go into these beers. The water in HeidALEberg is apparently one of the best in Germany, and it's very soft with low mineral content, which makes it ideal for brewing beer. And they're very proud of the fact that they've been one of the first to tap this source, and that it doesn't need any treatment. It can just go straight into the brewing process. And apparently they use a wide variety of malts for each of their beers, and they say that this allows better extraction of the sugars and thus a more rounded flavour in all of their beers. But the brewery also like to use aromatic hops, and they have their own specialist hop farmer called Friedrich, who's from the Hallertau region. And the brewery apparently have a particular affection for the use of Cascade and Fox hops, and of course all of their beer is brewed in accordance with the Reinheitsgebot of 1516. So their other beers include, in the classic range they have the Amber Wheat, the Dark, the Bright, the Kellerbock, the Pils, and also the Weizen as well. In the seasonal range they have the Advent Bock, the Fox hops, which is the Hopfenfuchs rather, which is the one that I reviewed for you already, the Marches, and the Weizenbock, and they also have a number of seal beers that are matured in different casks as well. And apparently this guy is a 5.5% it's a 7.5% speciality grain beer, I read, but it says on here India Pale Ale, so I'm not sure exactly how to describe this beer for you, but I'll bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the label on this one. It's got a British flag on it, as you can see, because it's an India Pale Ale, of course. This is a beer that they used to brew and made it stronger to transport it over to India and things like that. I need to read more into the history of that actually, and do a bit of history on the different types of beers or something. Maybe I'll do a few videos like that. But there's the label, as you can see. You can see the Klosterhof label, the Klosterhof badge on the top of this one. And you can see there's a little badge at the bottom there, which is for the Klosterhof Neuburg, and it has one of these sort of champagne bottle openings. So we'll get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting here. As you saw in my last video, this guy was a little bit difficult to get open with these sort of champagne openers, if you like. I knackered my fingers the last time for it, and with being a kind of classical guitarist, it can be a bit of an annoyance to destroy your fingers. But we'll get this guy open and we'll see how we get on. There we are. That was actually easier than the last one. Maybe the last one was just a bit of a bugger, but we'll see. So let's get this open and we'll see. An unusual top on this one, in fact. There you are. A bit of a bang as you open it. I've never seen this sort of thing to close beer before, but we'll get it out and we'll see how we get on. As I mentioned, it's a 7.5% either India Pale Ale or a speciality grain beer. I had to just check because some of the rate beer and things like that said it was a speciality grain beer, but on the bottle it says it's an India Pale Ale, but we'll soon find out from the tasting what it resembles more. Just get this into the thing. Actually smells quite like an English Pale Ale actually. It's got the nice sort of gardeny aromas I'm getting as I'm pouring it out here. So as you can see, it's a really clear beer. There's a lot of carbonation in here. It's actually more hazy than anything. I can see my fingers as I put them to the back of this here. It is a little bit hazy, but there's a lot of carbonation going up to the top here. It's got a bit of finger of a bumpy head on it, in fact. Just put a little bit more in. See if we can get the head back. I don't think the head on this one's going to retain very well, but which is unusual for a German beer, I should point out, in fact, but we'll soon see. In terms of the aroma here, it actually smells quite yeasty and quite sort of grassy and yeasty at the same time. But yeah, a lot of sort of gardeny and floral character to this, which is kind of what you would expect from a sort of English pale ale, if you like, or an IPA. I always like to differentiate between the American pale ales and the English pale ales because it's certainly a different style of beer in my opinion. But yeah, in terms of the aroma, it is really what you're getting here. There is a bit of citrus in there, there is a lot of grassy character coming out, but there is an underlying bit of bready and yeasty character as well, which is quite interesting. You can pick up just a little bit of grains as well, but it's quite a mild aroma, this guy, so we'll see. We'll get on with the tasting and see how it goes. Yeah, it's very, you can pick up, it's very, very sort of grainy and cereally actually when you take it in, but that doesn't really come out in the aroma, which is unusual. Yeah, very kind of grainy and yeasty. I actually quite like that. I actually like this one. This is maybe going to be my favourite one that I've tried from the Klosterhof so far. But definitely, it's got quite a lot. It's got a lot of grain and cereal in the flavour with this guy. And it's got some nice kind of caramel flavours, brown sugar caramel sort of thing underlying this. The grains actually mix really well with that. I'm actually quite impressed with this beer. But yeah, it's very grainy with a really nice underlying caramel one. There's not a lot of hops to this guy though. It's mainly a malty beer in my opinion, but a really nice sort of bready and yeasty middle with quite a bit of the grains and cereals are very forward in this guy, but it mixes well with the sort of caramel malt backbone. And the beer sort of sweetens up a little bit as you go through it, I think. But yeah, it's got a little bit of a kind of bit, it does have a little bit of a hop character at the end. It sharpens up, but it disappears very, very quickly. In fact, you'll feel it if you take it in. It just kind of has this little bit of soury sharpness that comes in, or bittery sharpness that comes in and then disappears very, very quickly. And the aftertaste, I think it's definitely the sort of caramel and grains that are laying through this one. It really is a very caramelly and very sort of cereal spiced beer, in fact. The thing is though, the spice doesn't have much of a bite to it. It's actually very, very well done in my opinion, but it's quite unusual for the English pale ale, if you like, to be so malty in my opinion. Usually you do get a good bit of balance with the sort of aromatic and grassy hops at the end, and it does smell grassy and a little bit citrusy and stuff, but I'm not really picking that up in the flavour, to be honest. Yeah, there maybe is just a little bit of the grassiness on the top of the tongue, but if you try this guy, you'll see yourself, it really is the malts that are coming out. You've got a big bready yeasty thing in there, but it's the grains and the cereal spice are the very forward component of that, and underlying you've got a nice bit of caramel there, and the bread sort of meets it in the middle and helps join the two flavours. It's really, really good actually. In terms of the mouthfeel of this guy, I'd describe it as a sort of mid-bodied beer. The carbonation is average on this one, and this is actually quite unusual for this beer. What I've found with the Klosterhof beers is that they have a very sort of chalky mouthfeel to them, but this one doesn't so much. It is a definitely mid, maybe even mid to full-bodied beer in fact. Very malty, and I would say, you know, it doesn't have that chalky mouthfeel to it. It's one that you want to just kind of sip and enjoy. I've maybe been going through it a little bit fast here, but it's one that you more want to sip and enjoy. The mouthfeel maybe is slightly oily. The carbonation is moderate, but it's a very different feel to their other beers. If you try most of the beers from this brewery, they do have that very kind of chalky mouthfeel to them, but maybe I need to try some of the darker stuff that they do as well and see how I get on with that. Maybe their darker beer is more along the lines of this, so I need to give that a go. But overall, if you want a sort of different style English pale ale or IPA if you like, this is maybe a guy to go for. It's a very malty beer. As I say, it's got some nice cereal components in there with a really, really nice sort of caramel and brown sugar backbone with a nice sort of bready yeasty flavour that puts the two together, and it does it very well in my opinion. This is the first beer from this brewery that I've been very impressed with, I have to say. Their other beers are quite good, but this guy is something different that you would want to try. So if you do happen to have tried this beer yourself, please let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer. It's a little bit expensive at €6.90 I would say, but if you want to try something different, you know, go to the brew pub up in the Ziegelhausen on the hill and give it a little try yourself. Hopefully I can get some more of their beers. I think I've got 2 more bottles from this brewery to review for you, so you'll see those at a later date. But thanks again for watching my beer reviews. As always, if you've tried this beer before, in the comments section please let me know your own thoughts on the beer. I'm always interested to hear if I'm getting the flavours right, or if you've thought the same thing about a beer as me. As I always say, beer is subjective, so you know, everyone will taste different things. But thanks again for your support over my 170 or so videos now, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. help the channel grow. And thanks again. I'll catch you soon with another beer review. Cheers.